All right, so like I don't care how this ends up, but this episode and this comic will never be as bad as that god awful frozen turd Ghost Rider 2. I have a hard time just talking about Ghost Rider anymore because of that stupid movie. And if you like it, get off of my show. Yo, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Unbuckled Comics, where I read and review comics just for you. I'm your host, Unbuckled Cape, and today we're looking at Spirits of Vengeance, Rise of the Midnight Suns. And if that sounds familiar, that's because this past winter, I don't remember if it was January or December, but Marvel released a video game called Marvel's Rise of the Midnight Suns. And I wish I could have played it, but it's not on Switch. It's the only thing it's not on. But before we get to that, I'd like to let you know there's a Facebook and Instagram of the same title, Unbuckled Comics, where you can keep up with upcoming episodes, add comments to episodes, ask and I'll let you into our Discord. You can DM me. I'll spice up your feed with some cool comic pictures. Seriously, all you got to do is ask. And I got tied up because I'm changing my intro a little bit because I do have a little bit of some news for you. This week, in my Discord, we are starting a weekly Guess the Character game. Guess the comic book character, where on Mondays I'm going to take like a really obscure picture that is tied to characters, like, say, I don't know, if I take a picture of a pile of rocks on Monday and then people are going to guess what character it is, and I'll, use a symbol to tell them if they're right or wrong, and then on Wednesday I'll take a picture probably of like their suit. Um, Maybe it's a T, and then if they don't get that, on Friday, I'll post a picture of the logo. So say it is again like a T, but in yellow. And then on Saturday, I'll reveal the character. In this case, I have a Terra in my head from Teen Titans, specifically Teen Titans Judas Contract. And then I'll let you know the first appearance and some fun facts about the character. So I'm really excited to do that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Be a neat game to have on the community. So that's what's new happening as far as our social stuff. That's really all I have to update you on. And, kind of the new format I've been doing here is trying to get to the episode as quick as possible to give you as much time, because you spend your time on me and I want to value that time as much as possible. We're all busy. We're adults with adult lives. Well, I guess you could be a kid listening to this. I hope you are a kid listening to this. We're talking about some comics that is pretty valuable for the younger generation here. So, speaking of which, I have some listeners from the kids in the Discord. They're not really kids. Our first comment is BK Ounce 19. I really hope that's how you want me to say your name. He says, if I'm remembering correctly, artwork was fantastic. The story was a bit flat, but my nostalgia is telling me I liked it. And before I respond to you, I'm going to let Super Dave respond to you, because he actually physically replied to your comment and said, mine too, but nostalgia is a habitual liar. Nostalgia is a habitual liar. Indeed it is. As far as the story, I do tend to agree that the story was a bit flat. But the artwork, oh my word, we're going to talk about that artwork. I think that this is Marvel's best era for artwork. I'm not 100% sure if he wanted this to be an episode comment, but I'm going to use it anyway because you did comment on my Instagram post. Cargo Friedman from the, is it the 10,000 Gamer Guild? Bear with me a second. It's right here. The Gamers Guild 1000. I'm sorry. Cargo Freeman from the Gamers Guild 1000. He commented, and his comments was like 4 fire emojis. So I take it either he was like given the fire for Ghost Rider, or like maybe he wanted to burn the book. No, I'm kidding. No. Actually, Cargo and I have had a couple of conversations about this, and he absolutely loves this story. So I know his fire emojis were that this book is fire. And the last word of the listener comments is going to go to Graybeard the Wise. Graybeard says, "It was a shameless excuse to get Marvel's best-selling characters together, and it was glorious." Then I'd insert the meme of Fry saying, "Shut up and take my money." So the only thing that I have to add to that is, like, I'm kind of surprised this was Marvel's best-selling characters at the time. It's Morbius, and I mean, Blade's really cool, and I guess Morbius is kind of cool, and then of course the Ghost Rider's awesome, but I'm just surprised that was the best-selling character, or at least some of the best-selling characters. But oh, look at that! How far are we into this? Not very far, and we're ready to jump into that episode. Let's go! All right, here we go. Let's talk a little bit about Spirits of Vengeance, Rise of the Midnight Suns. First off, like, I obviously grabbed this comic because I, wanted to play the game, but Nintendo doesn't have it. Oh, I thought for sure by now we'd be playing Midnight Suns on the Nintendo Switch, but we're not, and it... Anyway, it was also because this was my first Ghost Rider story. I liked the character of Ghost Rider. I saw that Blade was in it, Morbius. I saw that there was Venom at the end. So I was really, really, really excited to read this. And I was really looking forward to it. I was really burning through the other comics I had to get to first, just so I could get here to reading this one, and well, I read it. Yep, I read it. So we'll get to my thoughts on that in just a minute, but first we got to get through our creators and writers and all that, and this actually spans. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different books. There's the Darkhold, Ghost Rider / Blaze, which is the Spirit of Vengeance, Midnight Suns Unlimited, Morbius the Living Vampire, Night Stalkers, and Web of Spider-Man. So, the writers, Howard Mackie, Len Kaminsky, D.G. Chister, that's Chister, Chichich, I don't know. Christian Cooper. Artists, Ron Garney, Alex Salvuk, I don't know. Ron Wagner, Richard Case, Adam Kubert, Andy Kubert, Klaus Janson, Arthur Adams, Dan Panosen, Bill Reinhold, Joseph Rubenstein, Tom Mandrake, Mark McKenna, Joe Kubert, Chris Warner, Mike Witherby, Tom Palmer, Gregory Wright, Bob Sharon, Glynis Oliver, Renee Witterstatter, I said that and I immediately thought of the SpongeBob episode with the number one hat, Smitty Jebber, however they say it. Anyway, Dave Sharp, Michael Hessler, John. Oh, this is not a problem of his name. I was running out of page space and wrote teeny tiny. Constanza. John Costanza. It's Costanza. I remember reading that and thinking like George Costanza, like Seinfeld. It's Costanza. Yeah, John Costanza. Janice Chang, Steve Dutrow. So that is our creative team for these 5 books. Writers, artists, the inkers and colorists are thrown in there as well. So, Spirit of Vengeance, Midnight Sun. What can I say about this before we dive into the plot and just go all in on this bad boy? First and foremost, I love the art style throughout this book. I mean, throughout the whole book. Now the very last one is, I think, the Darkhold. Let me see. I'm flipping through the book here. I think it's the Darkhold one. That one's not as good as the rest. It's just, oh nope, it's Midnight Suns Unlimited. It's just a little darker, and sometimes it's a little harder to make out, but it's purposeful, so it doesn't bother me. It's not one of those art styles that like I'm looking at, I'm like, I can't even read this because I just don't know what's going on. It's not as clean drawn and colored as the whole rest of the trade, but I have it sitting right here and I am thumbing through it. Here, wait, hold on. Yeah, you hear that? Yeah. So hopefully by that you understood that it's a sizable trade. The art in it is consistent the whole way out, and it's easily my favorite era of Marvel. Especially once we get to the Web of Spider-Man, it's my favorite. I love Spider-Man and Venom drawn the way that they are drawn in this. But that is the Spirits of Venom story, not Rise of the Midnight Suns. We'll start off talking about Rise of the Midnight Suns, but the art is very very similar. It's cool. I mean, it's just that I believe it's the 90s. I need to start doing that. I need to start looking up when these originally released. I think I did look it up and it was 93, I think. Right here. Yeah, Ghost Rider was in 90, yeah. So 93, I'm going to say, is when about this came out, and that like mid 90s is some of the best artwork for Marvel in my opinion. So like I said, I grabbed this kind of on a whim, actually. I was just in the comic book store and I seen it sitting there. And again, I wanted to play the game, but knew it would be a while. And now probably, I don't know if I will get to play it. So I grabbed it, and I liked the Ghost Rider character. A lot of times when I was playing, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, Ghost Rider was one of the ones that I typically did have in my little group. I don't know if I used him much in. Was he in the Black Order? I think he was in the Black Order. Yeah, I think I used him in that. And then Night Stalker. So Blade's in this. Blade. I actually really like all 3 of the Blade movies. I know the third one gets a lot of crap because it became more of a comedy than the serious, vampire hunting Blade. But I'm also a big Ryan Reynolds fan, so and no, I'm not Canadian. But so I like Blade. Blade's in this. I like the Morbius character in the couple of Spider-Man comics that I have that he shows up in. I liked him in the 1990s Spider-Man animated show. I'm liking him less this time around. I'm actually running through that, watching that again, and the Morbius character is kind of irking me at this point. But that's, I guess it was nostalgia that made me think, "Ooh, I like the Morbius character in the show." Or maybe it was just I wanted the comic book and I was looking for reasons. I picked this trade up in case you're wondering. This was $40. This was a little heavier price, but like I said, I mean, I already did this once, but it's sizable. So yeah, I guess that's all the backstory. How about instead of me talking about the book, let's actually talk about the book. So in this, most people think Ghost Rider, you automatically think Johnny Blaze. Not the case in this one. Ghost Rider is Dan Ketch, and I know nothing about Dan Ketch, and unfortunately, I still know nothing about Dan Ketch. This whole book, I mean, I'll get into the details, but he's barely in this. Johnny Blaze is in it just as much, if not maybe a titch more than Ghost Rider, but he's kind of like Ghost Rider's caretaker. And I'm going to reference the Ghost Rider, the first movie. I will not be talking about the second movie because that was a hot pile of flaming garbage. The first movie's all right. It's, for the time it was a really good Marvel movie. Now it's, not great because Marvel has. Anyway, Johnny Blaze is kind of like the caretaker. Remember the guy in the grave that, he was like the original Ghost Rider in the movie? That's almost kind of what Johnny Blaze is in this one. So, um, right away we learn that Dan Ketch is dying inside a Ghost Rider. There's actually a small summary of like the events leading up to this that you read. It's not in comic form. It's just quick little summary. So Dan is dying inside of Ghost Rider, and the big bad in this, her name is Lilith, and she is coming. That was pretty much all that issue number one was. It's Spirit of Vengeance. I don't know what the actual issue number is, but the first issue in this trade, that's about all it was. It was just Ghost Rider, explaining what was going on. It was, setting the table. And for me, I was having so much fun because this was a new story that I had like no background on. Like I know about Ghost Rider and like that other stuff, and I know that the Midnight Suns, that's a video game, but outside of that, I knew nothing. I don't know who Dan Ketch is. I know nothing about him. I read the first, I'm gonna say like two parts of this, and I was like really, really excited because it was new and fresh to me. It wasn't me sitting down and reading a Batman comic where I have, you know, 100 Batman comics that I've already read that have built up a predetermination in my mind of what Batman should be. So this was just, oh, excuse me. This was just pure enjoyment for me of like, I had expectations, but like I didn't have expectations of the characters and how they should act. And I wasn't going over it with a fine tooth comb, I was just reading for enjoyment and then, taking notes as I finished reading so I could do a review on it. So, and at the end of the first issue, Doctor Strange shows up, and that really tickled my fancy bone there. I love. Oh, okay, that's my next note. Cool. So it's part of what I love about Marvel, right? I often talk in our preview worlds reviews about how Marvel's so big, it's kind of daunting and intimidating to me to be like, all right, I'm going to jump in and read this because I feel like, oh, I read Doctor Strange. Well, in that Doctor Strange, they're talking about something that happened in The Incredible Hulk. So I go back and read The Incredible, and like there's a lot of backtracking. Um, and maybe that's just me, and maybe it's not really that bad, and I'm just kind of being funny about it. But So part of my problem with Marvel is how big and expansive it is, and how everything always seems to tie into everything, and there's so much to read. Another, but something that I really love about Marvel and how big and expansive it is, and there's a ton of stuff that you could read that ties into everything. And I love how Marvel uses characters. They could have used some for new wizard type person that sees the future and basically does the exact same thing, because Doctor Strange being the Sorcerer Supreme really didn't have anything to do with the plot at all. Like, it kind of did, but you could have insert mythical master here type deal. You know what I mean? It didn't have to be Doctor Strange, but it's Marvel, so it was Doctor Strange. So I love it and I hate it. This was a case where I absolutely loved it because I didn't have to know anything previous. Um, as you move into the second book, the Lilith is born really quick, which kind of sets it up to have a really really long conflict, which I was all for. But like as I read it, it like it was weird. It would like build up anticipation, and then it would really slowly like fall down that hill as it got into like some of Blaze's like home issues and some of his reservations about working with Ghost Rider, and he's trying to give that life up and all that stuff. And it would build back up to the point where it was like, all right, well, Doctor Strange shows up again, and he kind of hints that maybe he might be pulling some strings. So like now there's a little bit of mystery of what's actually going back on. And then it kind of falls back down where Johnny Blaze is playing more caretaker to Ghost Rider, and we're not really learning anything about the plot. And then we do get some action in there, but it's not really what I thought it would be. I was hoping it would build up. I was hoping that the characters that I wanted to see would get together a lot quicker than this. We'll go over that here in a second, but a demon from Lilith. So she's the demon mother. They don't give a ton of backstory. I didn't think. She's just kind of like, they talk about mythical walls breaking down. I don't. I'm using the word mythical. I don't know if that's the word they use. I don't remember, and I don't know if I wrote it in my notes. But she has these, quote unquote, children. They're demons. They've been waiting centuries for her to come back, and she came back, and they're not all right there waiting. A lot of them have moved on to something else. There's one that like has a family. We'll get to him a little bit later. Uh, so she has these demons, and she sends one of them to attack Johnny Blaze's family, and it makes it super personal for Blaze, and it kind of puts him at the center, like it did a good job balancing Ghost Rider and Blaze to this point, but after the attack on his family, inside of the pages of Spirits of Vengeance, Blaze is definitely more the main character, and the Ghost Rider is almost like Ghost Rider's the hero, but we're focusing on his caretaker more than Ghost Rider. And maybe that's just because Dan Ketch is kind of like trapped inside of the Ghost Rider, and so it's just the Spirit of Vengeance itself. Um, so maybe that's why that was, and this is part of the problem with me not having a ton of background knowledge on the spirits of vengeance. I don't know how it worked prior to this arc, and I don't know how it worked after this arc. So the story then will switch to the pages of Morbius, and we follow Ghost Rider and Blaze to a woman who is also looking for Morbius. This was kind of neat, and again, because of the Spider-Man cartoon, and maybe you've seen the movie. I didn't see the movie. I probably won't see the movie, but we do get a quick little origin story about Morbius and how he came to be. The woman is explaining it to Ghost Rider and JB, and as soon as the origin is done, we're off vampire hunting. They're they're looking for Morbius, and Morbius has other people that are out to get him, and there's like this like little it sets up another mystery. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, look, I read this book this week, so it's not like I read this book and then I waited a week to do the recording. I finished reading this yesterday. I started reading this, I think, maybe Sunday. I think I was reading it a little bit before the Super Bowl on Sunday. So it didn't even take me a week to read it, and I don't remember if the people after Morbius ever gets resolved. I think it was just kind of like a side plot, what was going on in his title at the time before it jumped into Midnight Suns. And my problem was there was it kind of felt like there was quite a bit of that, which goes back to the whole like, if you were only reading Morbius comics at the time, you're reading about this group that's after him for some reason, then all of a sudden, oh, Midnight Suns. Okay, now we're back to Morbius. Like, just a lot of jumping, I think. Um, and then like because they do that, it feels like a lot's going on, right? Like you have Ghost Rider and JB, and they're like trying to recruit this team to go fight Lilith, and then while Lilith's demons are trying to slow down Ghost Rider and Blaze, we're getting her going around and recruiting hers, and it kind of feels like they're like walking around like, hey man, we're gonna fight after school in the playground. You bring your buddies and I'm gonna bring mine, and we're gonna form a big fight circle. Like that's what it feels like the build-up's getting to. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. So after Morbius kills some bad guys, he vows to only ever kill bad guys, and then like he kills the bad guys that were after him. And without trying to spoil too much, I'm going to be pretty vague about it. Something happens that forces him to attack people, and he kills them. And Morbius is. I get the feeling that he's the whole vampire thing is semi new to him yet. He hasn't figured out what he's doing with it yet. He earlier in this issue he gives into his hunger and he kills someone, and he like kind of like locks himself away and hides, and he gets captured then by Ghost Rider and Blaze, and they're trying to help him, and this other guy that's supposedly trying to help him is actually trying to kill him. And you almost can kind of figure out how that story is going to go on its own, but I'll still let you to read it in the future or look it up if you really want to know. But after he like makes the big vow, hey, I might be a vampire, but I'm only going to suck the blood of those who suck the blood off of the lives of the citizen. That kind of thing, like that real, like, I'm turning my life around moment. He just leaves. And, like, I'm confused because, like, I literally just got done telling you, like, they're recruiting their buddies for this schoolyard brawl. And Morbius has like this perfect build-up to become part of their Midnight Suns team, and then he just leaves. So, all right, thanks for your help. We'll see you later. So this is when the book started to go downhill. So Lilith has sent. We find out that she's been sending scrub demons, so that she could sit there and watch Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze and see, study him, learn from him. We learn that throughout this whole thing, there's Johnny Blaze is basically only in it with Ghost Rider to start with. He's really only in it because he wants to save Dan Ketch, so Dan Ketch could, kind of come back, and Ghost Rider could go back to being able to jump back and forth between human and Spirit of Vengeance. And they learn that Dan Ketch's and stopping Lilith is pretty much the same thing, but I don't really think it's ever really explained why it's the same thing. I don't know. Then we jump to some other characters that I don't know. They find this woman. She gets attacked. There's an explosion, rendering her unconscious. Um, Things get a little clearer here. We get the story about this woman and her dad's a preacher, and because of who they are, they're supposed to guard this book called the Darkhold. The Darkhold is this book that Lilith is hunting for. It is a book of sins that will release all evil. Um, so she is using like these cult-like fanatics as minions. They're just people, and she's kind of turning them into demons and using them as like her scrubs and minions to hunt down for this book. We also learned that Doctor Strange has the book itself, but there are pages that are lost and scattered all over the place, and these pages like can create demons and all kinds of bad stuff just by being read themselves. So uh, it's not necessarily the book as much as it is what's in the book. You know what I mean? Like there's pages now scattered all over the place, and you think, oh, maybe that's where this is going. Maybe we're going to go on a page hunt, but it never really happens that way. Um, so now I feel like, all right, so now I know what Lilith is actually after and why she's using these minions, because she's not at full strength because she needs the Darkhold book to make herself at full strength. So she's manipulating people and using her children demons to try and get herself to full power before she confronts Ghost Rider and JB. And then, we finally get a half decent, confrontation, but by this point it kind of feels dull. And I'm not going to tell you how it is. Like, so this woman that was in the hospital, that her dad's the preacher and she is supposed to eventually be the guarder of the Darkhold. She and this FBI agent are trying to escape one of the demons, and the demon is made completely of worms. It's gross. The scenes with him in it are gross. The art is drawn perfectly so that you know it's gross. It's gross. Um, he's gross. The whole situation is kind of gross. If you ever read the book, you'll understand what I mean. But again, like I said, there is a little bit of like one of those situations where you think there's a plot twist, like, oh, that person's bad. I knew they were going to be bad, and maybe that's a little bit of spoiler me saying that, but it ends up not being that way. Like, I feel like there are a lot of good ideas leading up to this point, and then they're like, I don't feel like doing that. You know what I mean? So this battle, this confrontation with this demon, it ends in such a weird way. And it was just such a like, I'm trying to think of something to describe it, because it's one of those things where, like, just when I thought you couldn't get any stupider, you go and do something like this, and you do in fact get a lot stupider. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those, like, oh, you had it set up to finally like really get that hook in me, really, really make me like consumed and want to sit there and read and read and read. And you could have did it through this confrontation with Mr. Worm Guy, and you messed it up, and just you used birds, and the birds are just that whole thing was just like, oh. And I know, again, I'm being very, very vague. I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't, it's not going to ruin the game for you, and I think it needs to be said. So there is she is an occultist professor. She's like studies cults, I guess. She leads everyone out into Central Park to get away from Worm Guy, and she's like, telling people not to use their guns and stuff, and it seems really fishy. And she keeps saying, I don't have time to explain. Well, in the end, her plan was to get Worm Guy into Central Park so the birds would eat him. And it was just, you have Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze, and the way you get away from a demon is having birds eat him. It just felt so. I mean, I didn't see it coming, so I guess that's good. Um, but at this point, it's like midway through the book, and Lilith feels so unthreatening. And look, I don't need a Thanos every time I sit down and read a comic. I don't need this big imposing villain, but I need something to make me care about the story other than the fact that I want to see Ghost Rider and Blade, working together. So, and like at this point, Blaze and Ghost Rider, it just feels like they can overpower anything that comes their way. And we're heading into the Night Stalkers part of this, which is part 5 of 6. Or so, no, yeah, it's 6. So like it's just like it feels like it should have picked up a lot faster, a lot quicker. Now Night Stalkers is more of a like we get it's not just Blade, it's we get Whistler sticking in my head, and that's not it. Hannibal King. He's Ryan Reynolds' character in Blade Trinity, and then we get a guy named Frank who kind of resembles the Whistler, but I don't know. Like it just wasn't picking up quick enough for me. And then at this point, it is notable that like Hannibal King is like kind of becoming a vampire at this part, but like you have no idea what's going on because they don't address that at all. So Lilith tricks Blade, Hannibal, and this Frank guy into fighting Blaze and Ghost Rider. And like, look, when they're battling, like that's really great. Like that's fun and interesting, and it's a good part of the book. But then I think about doing this review, and I'm like, so where does this make it fall on the ranking? Like, where is it ranking now compared to after this battle? And is it enough to pull it up that ladder a little bit? Um, and time will tell. So then, like, again, weirdly enough, like somehow all of our characters show up in in the schoolyard, and we find out later that it was Doctor Strange that pulled everyone there. But it just, I don't know, man. Like the ending was just kind of par for the course. The plot just kind of felt weightless, and it felt like a meh kind of team up. It just not an epic team up. I wanted, like I said, if part 5, the Night Stalkers comic, would have happened in part 2 of it, and then we would have had 3 of it. They don't even have to be a team at that point. It could have been them arguing with each other and, still kind of battling each other, and with a bunch of growing pains in it, something like that. But this was, it was almost basically like Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze were just title hopping comics. You know what I mean? Hey, let's find a reason to put Ghost Rider in a Morbius comic. Hey, let's find a reason to put Ghost Rider in a Night Stalkers comic. And then at the end, they're like, well, why'd we do that? We need to have a reason to put them all together. And they came up with Lilith, the demon mother, and the end of the book is good. I'm not going to talk much about the end of it. That way, it's if you ever pick it up and read it, you can decide that on yourself and read it for yourself. And I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed, and maybe that's my fault because I did have this, like, I was so excited for it. Maybe my expectations were too high, but to be honest, at the end of Rise of Midnight Suns, I am just disappointed. Now, the end of Midnight Suns is not the end of the book. We have Death Watch is dead, and it's just a setup for Spirits of Venom, which is the next book. and it's okay. It's relatively short, and that's about all that there is to it. It's just a setup for the Spirits of Venom arc, which starts off with Web of Spider-Man, and first of all, yay, Venom! And yes, I am biased. I am more interested in this Spirits of Venom, knowing that it's shorter, than I was after the first. Like, I'm the first issue of Spirits of Venom. I'm way more interested than after the first issue of Rise of the Midnight Suns. But I don't know. It's just better, and maybe it is because I know the characters more and I'm excited to see them. But I don't know. I don't find it as boring. It starts off with Spider-Man has a captured Hobgoblin and he's carrying him around on his shoulder, being chased by Demo Goblin and Doppelganger Spider-Man. And we get the Spider-Man wit and charm. We get Hobgoblin constantly yelling for Spider-Man to release him so he can help, and Spider-Man's like, how dumb do you think I am? I'm not letting you go. And then we get again almost like this was just a reason to throw Ghost Rider into other titles. Ghost Rider and Blaze track a pair of, I don't know, fanatics, I guess, hag and troll to the sewers. Ooh, sorry, past my bedtime. And they are attacked by Venom, and excuse me, I lost place in my notes when I yawned there. So Ghost Rider and Blaze are tracking these two criminals and killers, and the criminals and killers are attacked by Venom. And then, like, when Venom shows up, basically all chaos breaks loose, right? So there's these like shadow demon type things. I think they're called death spawns. I'm pretty sure they're called death spawns. And they are like, when they're in their shadow form, you can't touch them and fight them. But then when they're in the solid form, you can touch them and fight them. But there's so many of them that they overwhelm everyone and pull them into the sewers. And Spider-Man's down there with Hobgoblin, Demon Goblin, and Doppelganger Spider-Man. And then Ghost Rider and Johnny Blazer going down after him. And then Venom is following Troll and Hag down there as well because they killed some guards. And Venom, in his twisted sense of morality, he's out to kill people because they killed people, spilled innocent blood. And they get down there, and it's basically just a giant free-for-all. And it reminded me a lot of Maximum Carnage, where it was just chaotic people all over the place. Like in a part of Maximum Carnage, I think it's Shriek can control emotions of a crowd, and she makes them frantic and angry, and then like the crowd kind of starts fighting amongst each other. Um, that's kind of comparable to the death spawns and how they're all over the place, and then everyone else is kind of like it's a every man for himself kind of situation to start. And then so Demon Goblin, Doppelganger, Spider-Man, a priest walk into a bar. No. And Hobgoblin all get captured by these death spawns, and they're taken down so that their life force can help revive Death Watch, the guy that Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze, kind of semi-kill, I guess, in the story before this. So uh, we get a very brief and uh, I don't even want to call it a team up because they kind of knew they weren't teaming up. It just so happened that they were doing the same thing at the same time, right? So Blaze, Ghost Rider kind of team up with Venom as the Shadows demons are setting up this ritual or whatever to get Death Watch back to life, and it's great. the tension between Blaze, Ghost Rider, and Venom makes it so much fun, and it's like this is what I wish Midnight Suns could have been. They could have had Blade and Hannibal and that Frank guy, and they could have been maybe like the darker side of it, and then Blaze, Ghost Rider, and Morbius could have been the other side, and like those six could have just bounced back and forth the way that Venom and the other two do in this. And two parts in, and it's a ton of fun, and like I don't want to put it down. Part three, the death spawns create problems for everyone, and of course, like I have already said, it becomes a free for all again, and no one's really working together. Spider-Man does get out, and Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze, they end up together, and they discover like a bunch of people down in the sewers that they've been kind of storing and using as life source food. So they are like trying to start to get these people out, and um Demo Goblin has like his own vendetta against Hobgoblin, and Venom's like just kind of like going through the sewer looking for Spider-Man or Hag and Troll, and he sees Demon Goblin like getting ready to kill Hobgoblin. Venom just kind of stops and like, oh, this will be fun to watch, and then Doppelganger Spider-Man sees them, and they end up getting into a big scrap, and then Ghost Rider and Blaze allow Spider-Man to escape, um, and that really makes Venom angry. So then Venom is like a full-on villain here, and just like he goes berserk when Ghost Rider and Blaze let Spider-Man escape, and he's like just trying to kill everyone. He just wants to eat everyone. And along with this, like we get to see a little bit of intelligence from Blaze. He kind of plays into Venom's anger and makes Venom go on a rampage. That's like and it's just so much fun. I again I don't want to ruin it, and I really don't want to ruin this, because this is the best part of this whole book. And again, I know I'm slightly biased because I am a Venom fan, I am a Spider-Man fan, but this story almost does redeem, almost. um in the end, it kind of ends the way you think it's gonna end. There's like no great grand revelation or anything like that. But there's something to be said when you start reading a comic, and it's only, what did I say? Was this 3 or 4? I think this is 4 issues, maybe. Maybe it was only 3. I don't know. But it relatively short story arc here, and it starts off great. It has the same level of pacing and action, and it's just a good story. you know Not one issue isn't better than the others. It's just level. And after reading Rise of the Midnight Suns, that was so up down, this is really really refreshing. I loved it. So then after that, we get one more little quick story. It's the Rise of the Midnight Suns Unlimited, and basically Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze are just hunting down a monster that was made from the pages of the Darkhold. And it's okay. That's about it. It's okay. It's, again, not a great story. Um Reading that, you would have to read Midnight Suns to understand what's going on. And it almost makes Midnight Suns feel like it should have been a prequel to something. And maybe it is. I haven't done any research on it. Maybe there's a Midnight Suns comic that I should have read and then gone back and read Rise of the Midnight Suns. Maybe that's exactly what this is, because it definitely feels prequel-ish, but it's not exciting. really, I'm gonna stop myself here and just kind of go into a whole big summary. We're already getting close to that 50-minute mark of me just talking about the comic in general. Uh, so to sum it all up, I'd like to start by going back to mentioning the artwork again. This artwork is top tier. All right, this is, in my opinion, the best that Marvel has to offer, especially once you get into the Web of Spider-Man comics. If I had to compare this artwork, let's compare it to a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, shall we? I would call this a Raphael artwork, um, because it's BA, and quite frankly, it's the best turtle out there. So the artwork is hands down some of my favorite that I read. Jeez. I already know what I'm gonna say. It hurts so much to say it. I was so excited for this book, and believe me, I tried really, really, really hard to like it. I did. I wanted to like it. I wanted to be able to, at the end of this, I wanted to look at you and say, "What are you doing? What was I doing? Go out and pick it up." And I can't put it in the "what are you doing" category. It's not that good. I can't even put it into "get on it." This should not be in your next 5 books to read unless you are like desperate to get more Midnight. I don't even know, because I think the game's probably way better than this book. Um, that leaves pick it up or pass on it, and I want to say pick it up because the Spider-Man and Venom in it is a good, fun story with Ghost Rider. That's kind of what I wanted to see, was what I got in Spirits of Venom. But when you pick up this book, you're not going, "Oh, sweet, Spirits of Vengeance, Midnight, or Spirits of Vengeance, Rise of the Midnight Suns." There's a really good Spider-Man story in here. It's not why you're picking it up. You're picking up for Rise of the Midnight Suns, and if you're picking up for Rise of the Midnight Suns, I'm gonna have to tell you to pass on it. This is definitely in our new ranking, because it's only the second one we've done in our new ranking, or is it the third one we've done in our new ranking? Nah, I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look. Um, but yeah, it stinks. It really stinks. But I'm gonna have to go with pass on it. That's bugging me. Hold on, let me look. No, it's quarter vowels, and then the two Batman One Bad Days that we did were in the new ranking. So this is our third one in the new ranking, and I am going to send out a post. Actually, by the time you're hearing this, that'll already be out, of what everything else was. And yeah, this is 100% our first pass on it, and I'm hoping down the line we're going to do some comics that I'm not disappointed in, that I just don't like. There's definitely some out there, and I'll get to do the episode and be a little more hyped about it, and a little more like, yeah, pass on it. This sucks. Like, I think that'd be a lot of fun to just lay into a comic. Again, everyone noting that this is my opinion. I'm not, what I'm saying is definitely not the comic book gospel, but I think for the most part, unless you're a major Ghost Rider fan, I don't think it's worth it. And like I said, it was, I paid, the back of this comic has $3.99 US and then $50 Canada, and man, it is not often I grab a comic and say it is not worth the price, but I don't think this one was worth the price. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am glad I read it. I feel like I never read comics that I end up feeling this way, and that puts diversity in the show. All and like, I'm looking at silver linings for why I just do not like this comic, and that's what it boils down to. I don't like it. I shouldn't say I don't like it because of Spider-Man. You see how conflicted I am? I really, really want to like this comic, but when it comes down to it, I just think it was boring. I think Rise of the Midnight Suns was just boring. So I'm going to get out of here because I have spent almost 50 minutes exactly talking about just the comic, and then you're going to have my intro to listen to as well. So, yeah, until next time, guys, I am Unbuckled Cape. This is Unbuckled Comics, and I am going to pass on it.